We are live.
Check, check.
Come on.
1, 2.
Where's the production team?
1, 2.
Hello. Oh, the GovCast team is late. Production team late. Adding demerits to the file. 5 seconds too late to pop it off. Hey, you are looking live at the GovCast from South Florida. Hope everybody's doing great. In end of the month, doing big things, making stuff happen. Everybody's working through the end of the month. What's happening? How you doing? What's going to happen? You're going to get to your number. Folks working in the quota world. Steve, how's your number looking?
We're getting close, Jack. It's not over till it's over. So
you got 2.5 more days. Oh, there's the end of the month craziness.
Yes, plenty of time. Plenty of time.
That is where Dre is. So it's always 50-50. Always 50-50 at the end of the month, whether Dre drops in. She's chasing some big things. So literally an hour. She's like, God, my God. So she's doing big things at the end of the month. And so I hope you are too. Welcome, everybody. Stevie B.
I'm here. Stephen Bryan, Dean of GovSales University. So I'm sure most of the people are chasing the end of the month right now, Jack. But for those that are tuned in right now, thanks for joining us.
You say most people are not chasing?
Are chasing.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. I love when sales reps are like, can we go by quarterly stuff? It's so funny. I love it. It's like, that doesn't change where the number goes. So, hey, hope everybody's doing great, staying safe. Appreciate you joining us today. We're going to talk about, listen, you've probably seen our new administration. Joe Biden gets in and says, hey, he signed on Monday the Buy American Act. So it's created a ton of buzz. If you do any government work at all, I'm sure folks asked you this week or last couple of days. I mean, he just signed that on Monday. And then literally, I would say a third of the calls that we deal with, folks are asking about, like, what does it mean? And are you? And what happens? And what does it mean to me? And
phone was ringing off the hook as soon as that went out. Like, we were like, what's going on?
Ooh. They say government procurement. So we're just going to cover that today, kind of what it means for you folks trying to sell to the government, how it could change what's been happening. And so that'll be the focus today. We've gotten a ton of inquiries. And so hopefully it'll be very, very rewarding as you start to get set, because there are some things you could do literally today to help you take advantage of that are really, really quick and easy things. So we want to review that. So let me just, for those of you maybe were living in a cave and have not seen it, have not heard about it, let me give you two. Let me read this officially so I don't mess it up. So the Buy American Act requires companies that accept federal contracts, so it's just federal, for federal agencies only, to be based fully in the U.S. and to source none of their supply chains internationally. It also raises the burden of proof for businesses to argue that sourcing the products domestically is too expensive, and most important, establishes an oversight office. So there'll be a new office, which we'll talk about in the Office of Management and Budget, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then also the second revision, the executive order aims to ensure small and mid-sized businesses will have better access to information needed to bid for federal contracts. So that second one is really interesting because the government already does a ton of things. It'll be interesting. That was left kind of vague. Yeah. It will be interesting to see what additional resources they add, because I would just say particularly the federal government is really, really proactive about putting data out there, and the bids that are out there, and the FBO, what is now SAM.gov, is free. I don't know what additional things. So those are the two big provisions. Did you see anything else in there, Steve?
No, but you said it. I was going to mention, SAM.gov. So anybody that wants to work with the federal government and you have American-made business, go to that website. There's no cost to join. Don't listen to people that say you have to get on a GSA contract in order to do business. You can go on there, put your business credentials, and start seeing these opportunities. So that's a great resource.
Yeah, SAM.gov is free. It'll be so interesting. So, that is one of those that might be a little more of a PR item, but it'll be interesting to see. And again, it really, some of you that just sell state and local won't be, this act does not directly affect you. I'm sure that, like most things, there'll be some trickle down and states that agree with the policy or maybe some big procurements, what have you, could adopt some of it, and you could see it move its way down to state and then local agencies. So that normally happens when it starts at the federal level. So
yeah, my interpretation of the second one is, really just trying to figure out how there's the socioeconomic classification, like a woman-owned business, minority, that's like American-made business, right? Maybe that's the new little caveat that they're going to have on there for,
what are you talking about? There's some logos, and so are you certified and all those things. So I would be disingenuous if I did not say the following, which is really interesting for everyone who watches the show. Whatever way you lean politically, I would just say, like the administration had just left, whether you loved them or hated them. This kind of America First was their kind of policy, and it's really interesting when this gets signed. I think if you follow the media, it was met with most of it was very positive. And I think if the prior administration would have released it, it would have been tainted very negative. So I just say, listen, in all of the things you do, just know the media has an agenda. And so just encourage you to look at both sides or multiple sides of a policy, because if you just watch CNN and feel like, and those kind of venues, you're going to feel a certain way. And just watch Fox or what's AOAN. Like you're like, I got it all. Listen, neither side is right. So whatever you're dunking on, they're both to blame. So
what is OAN? Is that the Oprah Winfrey Network? What is?
Oh no, I don't
That's
know.
OWN.
Yeah, I don't think it's Oprah. It's some conservative outlet that's kind of taken over when people are mad at Fox or whatever. But again, I just want to reiterate, not taking any political event. Both sides are equally to blame, and we can folks like to draw the line where it's convenient for them. And just like with this policy, I think there's some merits that'll feed off the prior administration, and hopefully there'll be some things they add to this administration will make it better. Because I think we all saw during COVID, right, Steve, that we needed some medical supplies and needed some stuff and some pharmaceutical things, and we're like, oh, all that comes from the place that's poisoned us. So now we're
exactly right. Yeah. What's the no? She's like, oh yeah, we're getting some masks because we had a contact who actually does shipping and transporting from China. Big in the home goods industry, right? So all that decor and tchotchke stuff you see that you hang on your wall, it says home sweet home together. He does all that. Big business. So from China, yes. And just gets a container. So, he's like, yeah, we'll get medical masks to help out the hospitals here. Brought him in, donated for free, super nice guy. But that's the one thing it came. I'm like, do we really want to put masks from China on our face? Just thinking out loud, I'm like, this is where it all came from. But they've been great. We have not had COVID. My wife and I, she actually just got her second shot. So
wow, that's good for her. Amen.
Yeah, good for her. Yeah, it's great. So now she feels invincible, and I'm just wondering,
one of you is safe.
Yes, exactly. I was still worried myself. But yeah, good point, right? We rely so much on foreign countries to get goods here, right? And when we can't bring them in, the economy basically shuts down. People were in panic. And if we create it, right, that builds our own ecosystem so we don't have to rely on foreign entities in order to get the job done. So I like that plan. I know there's a bunch back and forth, Jack, where you say, oh, it's going to be more expensive and then you have to pay. All those counter things. But again, if you could be self-sufficient, right? Teach a man to fish, catch your own fish, build your own supplies, have your own supplies. What's that?
Person to fish.
Person to fish, yes. Politically correct. I think that puts us in a good spot, especially for those critical goods that you don't want to be at the mercy of somebody else just pulling that over. You can say we get into a battle and they don't want to supply us, then you're really screwed.
A battle. Yeah, listen, I think the pendulum goes, right? Oh, we should have a lot of international trade. It's great. We're a player in the world economy to when there's an emergency, oh my God, we're so dependent on others. I think we all know our country does that, right? We go one way and then the pendulum comes back the other way. And so I think there's some middle ground in all things. And hopefully we find that. But I think the reality is if you're not in that industry, you don't care. You're like, oh, we should buy America. But if you have to pay 2 or 3 times, then you are greatly affected. Then all of a sudden you're like, I don't know how I feel. So it's always like, we need a city dump. And then as long as it's by your house, it's fine. You know what I mean? If it's by the other person's house, it's fine. When it's by your house, you're like, I don't want to dump here. Right? Well,
that's the same thing. Everyone protested when they're trying to raise minimum wage jobs. It's a 15 an hour or wherever it was.
Careful. That's coming next.
Well, it is, right? And someone said wherever they were implementing that already, said, oh, the price is going to go up to $80 for a taco at Taco Bell because you have to pay employees there. And they're like, nope, it's still $3 for the taco. So, we'll see how that all pans out, but that's definitely going to be a hot button, amongst people and parties.
Less Taco Bells. There'll just be less of those things.
They're building a new one right down the street from me, so they're still going.
Not at $15 an hour, but that's a different policy. Don't derail us. So, hey, listen. So super important. There's no doubt bring some of that home. But one thing, one of the things I saw out there on all the things over the last couple of days, getting inundated. One of the facts I actually copy and pasted. It was direct government procurement represents a small sliver of the U.S. economy. That was in a major media publication. I just want to repeat that. Direct government procurement represents a small sliver of the U.S. economy. Listen. That was sharp. Look, the production. That was great. We're back at it. Look, so with the delay, we're back at it. I could just say, as a company that collects all the factual data, literally, if you aggregate federal, state, and local, it is one of the biggest elements of GDP. It's been number 1 2 years ago. It's something in the top 3 of GDP money spent. The government in totality, the 90,000 plus agencies, is one of the top 3 elements of the U.S. economy. And don't let anybody tell you different. That's just a repeated bad fact somebody's putting out there. So.
Yeah, I know. $7 trillion a year. Who else is spending that? Who do you think number 2 and 3 are?
Yeah, it's so weird. I don't like that stat gets repeated. And so this only applies again to federal, and then it applies to products and services within federal. You know what I mean? So it's not all of everything they buy. You can't necessarily go out and buy an aircraft carrier or some of the things, the big DoD stuff, but for all the products and services. So it is a really, really, really big thing. And so what was one of the other things? Oh, doubling down on the rigorous rules, right? And so you mentioned, Steve, like, hey, folks are really worried about the impact of this. Hey, will it both increase price and cost jobs? And so that's actually a real thing. You mentioned it earlier. Like, hey, what is this going to do? It sounds philosophically great. How will it affect the cost of what we pay and, the sources and how many sources we have for stuff, right?
Yeah, no one has the crystal ball, right? And in theory, it sounds good. Okay, you want to raise wages. You want to have things made in the States. So that's going to have a higher cost per, if you're in business, what's the cost to produce it? What's the cost to sell? And then your profit margin, right? So if these profit margins get lower, because you do still have to sell it at a price people could afford, what happens to the companies that are creating them? And that's really the tough conundrum is like, okay, we're taking more control, but is that a race to the bottom? Like, is that one of the things where we're just digging in our own grave, kind of going into that? Or can we survive all that? And does the government step in and help subsidize some of those costs, right?
I think what it leads is historically it's led to our vendors can really eat at the trough of the government, but may not, when they go out to the private sector, it may not go as well, right? Because if the government, again, you actually talked about earlier, if we have set-asides or some other things, you may be great in your set-aside, if you're a veteran-owned business and you're only competing against veteran-owned business, that may be great for you. And maybe in the free and open economy, whether that's in the private industry or internationally, it could be more of a struggle. And so it could set up the Buy America Act, where, hey, it works well for you in the government space because they're not going to look at outside providers. It doesn't matter if it's 50 cents on the dollar. They're not going to be able to do that. So again, it might be a chance for companies to really make some hay with government deals, and they're just going to be a lot more sensitive when they go out to the private market if they choose to do so. Right.
Yeah. And I think one thing, or talk about misconceptions earlier, is, everyone thinks the government buys on price, which we know is absolutely not true, right? It's not just the bottom dollar lowest price gets it, because, analogy, if you buy like a phone system where everyone has to talk and you buy the cheap knockoff version, then you can't make a phone call. Like, yeah, great. You saved, hundreds or thousands or millions of dollars, however much that costs. But if you can't make a call, you can't get the job done, then that's a fail. So why not spend, a little bit more extra money to have a great product? So I'm not saying that American products are going to be better quality. I hope they would be for the price. But that's the thing where you come back to is if there's a longer shelf life, I think people and consumers could justify that expenditure just because you wouldn't have to replace it as often.
Yes. No, listen, I want to say the following statement. Would love to, if you work for a government agency, you're watching this on replay, no offense to the following. Listen, like the government is not focused on cheapest price. We went to market with a whole bunch of data. We have it, government agencies. So I can walk into an agency and be like, hey, you buying widgets? Here's 10 agencies around you buying widgets. Here's the cheapest one. And, buy a vendor. And they'll be like, I don't care. Like what Steven said is so true. They're like, I want the one. I like that vendor. They supported great. I don't care about the price. Like, I'm just saying, 10 years, I've heard that hundreds of times. Be like, you're buying for like 30% more than da-da-da. And so I promise you, the government is not focused on the price because we serve it up to them. I'm like, here's the bell curve. Here, you're buying widgets like TrueCar. Here's the bell curve. Yeah. And they're like, I don't care. I like Bob. Bob's a good vendor. I like Bob's peanuts. We buy peanuts from Bob. I don't care if the peanuts are cheaper. Like, I'm just telling you hundreds of times. That's a real thing. So that's just a general overview. If you've not seen or heard of the Buy American Act, those are all some implications. So just wanted to deep dive in a little bit. Hey, what are a couple things you can do? It is happening now. And if you're dealing with the government or want to win government business, so especially if you're playing in the federal market, but again, I think everything we'll talk about, if you start to do it and apply it to state and local, it's going to give you a little bit of advantage. You'll be a little ahead of the curve. So I think we have about 6 things. So
yeah, before we get into tips, I know you have also a fact that you took from one of the articles about applying about a third of the $600 billion in goods.
Yeah. So all of the spending in the federal, they say the Buy American Act only affect about a third of the current spend. So again, I think that's TBD. I think it's one of the stats that's put out there. Again, when you read or try to study this, it's so fun. You can tell they all go to the same talking points because they all mix in like a story of a company, but the facts in every press release, article from the White House, from Wall Street Journal to Forbes, it's almost identical.
There's a controlled narrative happening behind the scenes that buy it all out.
What's the number? Like no one really knows. They just repeat. Oh, well, that was in Wall Street Journal. Has to be true, right? And so
we got to do a follow-up episode on this like a month from now, see how, or a couple of months from now, see how it truly shakes out.
Yeah, but listen, before we get into things, like we do that, like when folks ask us, we have outside investors or we corporately, and not at our company level, but at a strategic planning level, like, hey, how big is the government market? How much is being spent? How many companies are out there? I'll just tell you, there's no one place to go get that data. We have researched it to death for a decade. Now I can give you 30 little factoids off some website or some press release, but somebody said, oh, where's the facts behind that statement? I don't know. It's like a slippery slope. I got it from Forbes.
Someone got it from there. Yeah.
I got it from Wall Street Journal. I just quoted them. So I don't, and then it's like a empty hole. So I'll just tell you, we have the data. We can factually tell you what it is, the number of agencies, where it goes. Cause I have the hardcore data. Our company. So the things we put out are factually true. And I'll give you hundreds of millions of data points to back it up.
We'll show you real life. Here's all the spend. Here it is by agency, by state, by type. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. If you're trying to sell to the government or do the Buy American Act, just ping us. We will show you for free what's actually happening. So listen, 6 things that you can do to take advantage of what's happening. So here's the first one. I think you saw it early in the show. I think I saw it twice on the screen. Listen, if you just go to Google and put Buy American Act certification or logo, there are literally already, here's a couple examples, already a ton of them out there. And so really encourage you to make sure you facilitate one of these, right? There's one on the left that seems more compliant where they'll have some certifications. That's the one in the state of Florida. Or like some of these other ones, this is going to sound odd, but like there's a million versions of these online. Like, hey, if you know you're a solely American company, make an American product with American staff and all American supplies, you should get one of those and put them on your website like ASAP. Like right now, it is like, when anything starts, it's kind of like the Wild Wild West, you know what I mean? And there's no place to go. Now, listen, they are coming, right? There is an office coming, a new office that's going to probably mandate and what are all the rules. But right now, if you know internally, hey, we're a US-based company, US-based staff, US-based supplies, like get ahead of that. Like it's one of those, the Army used to do the don't ask, don't tell thing. It's like, listen, go get yourself a logo, put it on your website. If you feel like the couple that are up there are too official, again, if you go Google, there's a bunch of companies that are like hedging their bets, but they're like, we are American made, or we're like sticking that logo both on your website, we're down where all your social media stuff is, or in all your email correspondence. So important. Make sure it's just very validating, right? It's like having a BBB logo on your website, right? Go get one of those logos, especially if you know. And then again, I assume there'll be a more formalized process based upon the state you're in or what the OMB puts out, but just encourage you to it's so simple. Like just go get one of those and I don't think the federal Buy American Act police are going to come and knock you down for it, but it's like, hey, I know we are. Whatever rule you put in place, we're good. So get ahead of that. You can do that today. Go get one, put on your website, put in your emails. You're like, we've already gotten asked. Literally, we're all American-based, U.S., everything we do. And so folks have already asked us. I've had 2 clients this week. I mean, that thing came out Monday. Tuesday, I got 3 emails. Hey, are you guys compliant with the Buy American Act? I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? That's what led to today's show. I'm like, yeah. So we're actually uploading that ourselves. And so you'll see us add that. So please go do that. Easy. You can do that today. Go get your Buy American Act, put in all your stuff so you feel like you check the box, especially if you know internally, and then some of the hard and fast rules will be out. Good?
Yeah, those remind me actually of the stickers you get when you vote, right? Like the red, white, and blue. Put them on your chest. So I think invest in sticker manufacturing companies. That's what I'm little pro tip right there.
Oh no, digital. It's all going to be digital.
Digital, because I was thinking everybody's going to have it on their packaging, but if it's only for the federal, maybe they'll just take your,
But listen, you should. You're right. You are true. Like put it on all your stuff. It's going to be amazing, amazing, amazing. And the second one, listen, promote it in all of your government marketing materials. Right? It is a thing, and it's like government folks typically want to get ahead of the curve, so it's out there, right? And again, even if it's not, if you're trying to do a state and local deal, you just starting to lead with that. Hey, we're compliant with the Buy American Act. Hey, everything we do is in America. We can both, do all of our stuff. We're here. Like that is huge. Just add that to all your government correspondence. It can only help you. It's not. No one's gonna be like, oh, made in America? No, right? So just make sure you're compliant and do that. Literally, you can add the logo today on all your stuff. And start to promote that in everything you have out there. Go through all your marketing stuff, right? Hey, what is your email chain? Like add a reference to that. It's going to be so important because if not, folks they're going to ping you. Promise. Again, we've already had it happen. It's been out 48 hours. We've already got pinged 3 times. Do you have that? Do you have your logo? Do you have your certification? Are you really American made? So just get in front of it. It like can only, you know what people in the government do? Again, if you work for the government, they don't want to get fired. They'll literally, if you lead with it, they'll take your email and go, oh, Buy American Act company. They'll just put it over here. That's the way it works. Just like when you do resumes. Listen, for all you that hire, when you do resumes, you see Ivy League, Duke, Stanford. What do you do with that resume? What do you do with that resume every time?
Go to the top of the pile.
Yeah, I'm going to put that over here.
That's a good pile.
Right. So same thing today, right? Go out and add those things to all the stuff you're doing with the government. Easy.
Well, the one thing I was reading an article is the people that actually pivoted last year during the crisis. I know, like, there was distilleries, like people that actually produce alcohol, like spirits. Yeah. They started getting into the 80% making the hand sanitizer, right? So they're already ahead of the curve because they're doing it on U.S. soil. They making it. So like Ford Motor Company, they made the face shields because they're like, oh, we can do that to help people. So they're in a prime position to get in that. So people that are ahead of the curve already figured it out how to survive last year. That's going to pay off dividends tenfold.
Ford's got to go down there and be like, are any of this international? They're going to have to check their supply chain.
But yeah, people that manufacture like sign companies. I know people who are sewing masks. Like it's been incredible. So that's a huge win for everyone that made that shift last year. Sure. It's going to pay off going into 2021 with the new act that's been passed. But yeah, I got another one here. Emphasize your ability to deliver and support immediately, right? You are in this country. You don't have to wait 3 months. You ever order a football jersey offline, Jack? And you're waiting. You're like, is that ever going to come in from that website? Which jersey?
Listen, if you don't know the middle Super Bowls and weekend, you don't know if you just go into you can get jerseys from China for like $20. Like,
pay 150 from Fanatics or the one website out there.
The NFL chasing them though. The NFL chases them down, shuts them down.
No, but trust me, I
would never do that.
No, I not making any accusations here, but I even know like my wife, she'll order things off of Amazon or websites that look legit and through Instagram marketing, and then it will like show up, and then 2 months later you get it. So emphasize that you are here located. You can get anywhere, like same day delivery, pretty much across the United States. So that's just going to be a huge plus because agencies, they want it and they need it now, and you can comply with that being here on the soil. So that's just something to keep, in the back of your mind and use that to your advantage when you are in negotiations and say, hey, look, no more waiting time. I can get you that. I don't have to wait on any other supply chains. We are the supply chain.
That's huge. Yeah, the functional part of the Buy American Act is going to be huge because you are right. There's a lot of products and services you can get overseas, good quality, but the support piece, and if it gets lost, like I was still getting Christmas mail like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
crazy stuff. And COVID, all of it's jammed up. And so I think that's huge, right? It's part of it. Not only talking about the logo and putting all your stuff, but then adding the support piece and, hey, we're able to supply quicker and support quicker are huge parts of this effort. And all that just gets you out ahead of the curve. So, is that number 3? So I have, we have 5. So I have number 4. Listen, number 4, you should, so part of the act the other day, they're going to set up a special office in the Office of Management and Budget for compliance. So the Buy American Act. So it's coming, right? I think the prior administration set up Space Force and they started to make that happen. I don't know if that's going to stick around. So the government, or when they set up TSA many years ago after 9/11. So this is going to be a new office. They say it's going to be in the Office of the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, is where this office is going to be. But I would monitor it and kind of put it in your Google reminders when it comes up, because when that gets set up, they'll typically, they'll set up the office. I assume that's happening right now. And they'll start putting out guidance for what does it mean, who's affected, what are the parameters, what are the procurement levels, like all of those things I think will happen. It will be so important. And the quicker you find out, you have the advantage of everyone else, because again, just procurement folks on the government side just want to be compliant way more than they want the best solution or the cheapest price. You know what they want to do? Not
keep
get
your job.
Right.
Keep
not
your
get
job.
fired. And you know how you get fired, right? When you buy 5X for something and it's on the cover of the paper, people don't like that.
$1,000 toilet seat.
All that, we've all heard those, right? That's
Yeah.
horrible. Or like, if you're not compliant, hey, we did this thing and we didn't go through all the right channels, and the media loves to they're always trying to throw stones. And so, I just encourage you to set up your reminders. Any of you that are doing government business, just put in Office of Management and Budget, Buy American Act. And when those things come out, which will all be on Google, you'll get a reminder in your email. It'll be so important. I assume it'll happen really, really soon, but make sure you do that so that as the specific things come about, you'll be all set. Good?
Yeah, it's a great tip, Jack. Just keep your eye on OMB. But there was also another information that was shared regarding the electric vehicles.
Yeah.
So they were talking about in the federal space that they're going to replace like the entire fleet. Like they're just going all electric. So the future is here. I guess that's why Elon Musk is the richest person in the world now. He was ahead of the curve. You ever heard that stat, or is that fake news too?
I don't know. Is he not you always hear about what Bezos and Buffett? So
yeah, I think he just passed those maybe on America's soil. I don't know, the logistics, but I just heard he jumped up once.
Somebody on the GovCast. Can somebody grab that stat?
Yeah, someone find that. We need a graphic in here, but that's huge. So if you're in the electric space somehow, right? Like maybe you don't create cars, but you're in the battery manufacturer, or you're in the charging stations, or you're working with government agencies, cities, counties, they're all going to need to be able to adapt, because if people in federal vehicles are traveling and they go across state borders, you have to make sure that your area is set up in order to bring in that business, right? Because that's also the economy, is how it's going to move. And we've always been worried, is this really going to take off? Well, it's here. It has changed. The federal government is putting money behind wiping out their whole fleet and making it full electric. So we are in this new era, and if you are in that industry and paying your dues over the years, setting up whoever charging stations, making that happen, you're in a good spot now. So just keep your eye on that too, because if you can help them in any way, I always remember the gold rush, Jack. They said people travel from the East Coast over to the West Coast, and they're like, the people.
You remember the gold rush, Steve? You were alive back in the gold rush.
Good point. I remember the story about the gold rush, where they talked about it's not the people they were out there looking for the gold. It's the people that when they got out there, they needed the pickaxes, right, to actually mine the gold. And those are people that made money. So if you can relate to the electrical car business in any way, you don't have to make electric cars, but just try to think outside the box. The government's going to be spending a lot of money.
You're true. You may not be in the electric car business, but if you're an installer, if you do wiring, think about Biden said the other day, we're going to go all electric car for the federal fleet. That's literally tens, if not hundreds of thousands of vehicles. One, right? Second, the infrastructure to make that happen. I got my government vehicle and I'm trolling down I-95, right? A lot of infrastructure to make that very real world, right? I got to go to Florida. No, I can't. Halfway through, I'm out of energy. So from an installer to electric, there's a ton of things. Again, like Steven said, even if you're not in but the part of specifically electric cars is going to be a ton of support stuff. That's going to be huge. That is another huge opportunity that's coming with this Buy American Act. And he just mixed that in right at the end. He's like, oh, by the way, hey, we're also going to change over the entire fleet. You're like, whoa.
It's a big project.
You are right there. Look, this thing called Google. It's very helpful. Elon Musk, 2021, 188 billion. He ekes out Bezos by 4 billion. Bezos is at 184.
You heard it first on GovCast, right?
Gates way down at 132. That poor guy. So only 4 billion between them. I'll just take one of the billions. The 4 billion. It's funny on the chart. It looks so minimal.
I know.
Elon's at 188 billion, and then Gates at 184 billion. You're like, just 4 billion. Just come on.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So those are, listen, as this act just got done, those are 5 things that are out there today, super concrete, that you can make happen, and that are real differentiators. Because again, government business is not, is it out in 6 to 9 months? It is. But there's things being awarded right now. We always talk about like all these testing stations. The testing stations for COVID are going to be very similar to this electric car thing, where they're going to need a ton of support to execute against this thing. And they're not just going to throw the switch overnight. It's going to be a series of iterative things. And if you can help or support in that world, in fact, the infrastructure piece is going to be before the vehicles, because the vehicles are easy, they're happening. But hey, I'm driving down I-10 or I-95. How do I get recharged? It's going to be a real thing. So let's just recap those 5 things. You want to make sure you get one of the Buy American logos or something certified that you're in it. Make sure you do that. All right. There they go. There's a couple samples that are out there today. Some companies are already promoting. Promote all that on all of your government correspondence now. Hey, we are American made. We're compliant. We see the Made American Act. Just say it. Be like, hey, we're American made. All our employees are in America. All our stuff is sourced in America. That will take you from the maybe pile over to the I'm going to hold on to your stuff pile. Yep. That's just a real thing. I'm just telling you, that's a real thing. So you cannot believe me, but it's a real thing. I think, Steve, when you added, the ability to support and deliver immediately, huge, right? You want to emphasize that. Hey, that's the logistics of this thing. Like, hey, I'm going to be able to get it to you and support it. It's going to be one of the real advantages that it'll have. The OMB, monitor the Office of OMB, because there's a specific office that's going to be made to both monitor and put out guidance related to the Buy American Act. You can do that really simple. Just go to Google, again, set up an alert. And then 5th, as all of the infrastructure for the fleet for the federal government gets transferred over from whatever fossil fuel to electric, it's going to be huge set of opportunities for anybody that's in the infrastructure world. And again, even if you're not, like Stephen said, some of the liquor manufacturers went to go make hand sanitizer. Yeah. If you're in the, if you're in the electricity space or in the power space, I know a lot of companies. When you mentioned Elon Musk, certainly I'm up here near Cape Canaveral, and there's several companies that used to be in the power grid, and now they're, they moved over to some of the battery stuff and how to make renewable energy. And so that's going to be a huge endeavor when the president, a week into his administration, announces such major infrastructure things. It's going to create a lot of momentum. Just like, 4 years ago, to relate, when Trump, whether you liked it or not, said, hey, we're going to go coal, it lit up the coal industry, right? With dead, and it exploded, came back, and so many companies made a ton of money with the money, the federal government. So we're going to go spend money here. So you better come. A lot of companies jumped in where they had left. And so I really encourage you to be aware of that in the electric car industry. So those are some really, 4 or 5 things you can do immediately to make sure you're dialed in. Anything else, Steve, related to the Buy American Act that we missed? I know there's a lot of data points, but
it's a lot. Yeah, I think we covered it. I would say if anybody is a fan of electric vehicles, on Apple TV, there's a show called Long Way Up. So Harley Davidson came up with a prototype electric motorcycle, and they also had the new Rivians, which they haven't hit the streets, but I'm sure you heard about the Tesla Cybertruck. So Rivian is an electric car manufacturer. They're making a truck and an SUV, not a car, because there's a big market for that. So it's a journey, from South America, all the way up. And they don't have like all these necessary charging stations. So it goes through all like the struggles of building that infrastructure. So if you want to watch through the pioneers, it's like the person that sailed across, the ocean. This is like the first people to take like electric motorcycles and the electric trucks, SUVs, and go across the country. So it's
a lot of old school references today. The gold.
I'm showing my age. I don't know. Long Way Up, Apple TV. It's definitely cool and beautiful scenery as they're traveling the country.
Steve, for audience, he's really 247 years old. He doesn't look like it. I mean, a little bit of a hairline, but the rest of it looks like a young guy, but I don't know. So
I always tell people, that's a little trick too. Always tell people you're 10 years older than what you really are, because you look better.
Oh,
80 years old. Oh, you're good.
Free tip on today's show. Free tip. That's great. Cool. So wish you the best. We'll do other shows as more guidance come out about the Buy America Act. Huge. But you'll hear about it. Encourage you to get in front of it. Good. And so we have a couple other quick things to wrap up. I know, Steve, we want to talk about the webinar that you just did about, again, same kind of topic. How do you market to the government? How do you win government business from a marketing perspective? And so you want to share, folks, what that is?
Yeah, we had a webinar last week, and it was more on marketing, right? Like, how do you position yourself this day and age in order to attract government business? And I feel like a lot of people, Jack, as we covered the 7 tips, they're doing 1, 2, maybe 3 of those. But it's the compass of all 7 that actually is going to put you in the forefront. Because if you have your website up, great. Does it have government terms? Oh, no. But it tells what you do.
Add the Buy America Act now. See,
yeah. Government logos. We talked about the advisory board. There's so much good information in this webinar. It's completely free. So if you missed the live, you can watch the replay. Go to govsalesuniversity.com/marketing-to-gov. You can see the URL right there. We'll put a link after this video so you can click on it just to make it easier for you to watch. And 45 minutes, like, it is worth your time, because starting now, if you really want to get serious about government sales, you got to make sure you look the part to the outside public. People are going to Google your business. People are going to look up to see if you're accredited. People are going to see if you sell to the government, your testimonies, like all this information. It seems like common sense, but when I go look at people and they email me with a Gmail address, I'm like, come on. If you were to a government agency, like, get your web. You can buy it for what? $10 on GoDaddy. You can change your email address and make it look legit. And these are just the little things. And when you have them all together, that's going to put you in the forefront, separate you from the pack, and give you that advantage to win government sales. So check out the URL and watch that replay. Absolutely free, and it'll help you out with a lot of tips.
Yeah, now Stephen's very, very humble about it. The other thing you'll see, Stephen talks about GovSales University, which is a great resource, whole set of videos, online videos, and you're going to see that explode. They're actually increasing. I think the number of videos in there is going up by like 50%, Stephen, right? There's
oh yeah, we're going to have like over 100 plus in the next week or two, include selling during a pandemic. That's been a lot of people asking us towards the end of the year. We're like, hey, like, I didn't capture this $3 trillion of extra stimulus money. Like, how do I get that? I mean, we know we're still going through changes, and that government is still spending money. So if you haven't sold to the government and you want to learn start to finish what you need to do step by step and win your first deal, GovSales University is the way to go. No long-term contracts or commitments. We give you the education. So no matter what industry you're in, if you're selling liquor or PPE, or if you're selling Tesla charging stations, it applies to everybody. And that's the best part. So yeah, if you have any questions of that, feel free to reach out to us or our team. Just go to govsalesuniversity.com and we'll help, give you a free tour. You look behind the scenes, we'll check out opportunities and set you up for success the best we can here.
That thing, listen, I'll just say to folks on our little commercial, I'm sorry for the long kind of sales pitch about GSU, but listen, it's like $150 or whatever it is a month, and there's no contract. You can literally go in there, everything is there, and you can, if they don't own their keep and you guys stay as a customer, you can just leave. There's not a better use of $150 for a market that's trillions of dollars. It is amazing. And listen, we go look at everything that's out there from an education standpoint. There's some good stuff out there, but in one place, everything that you would need to know to sell the government. It's a great, great, great place to start. Then you also get a bid notification service and GovQuote. There's a lot of other things to help you. Not only will they talk to you about how to win your first government deal, like all the logistics, but they'll actually go show you these opportunities and help you win a government deal. By the way, like now, like in the next couple of weeks, next month or two, you can do 6 months from now. We'll help everybody. Like, that's got it. But,
that's what I was doing right before this call, Jack, is guy runs an environmental consulting business. He's like, I'm trying to get a deal. I'm like, look, here in literally 3 days, they are awarding it on Friday. And I'm like, do you know about this one? He's like, no, I've only been looking at federal. I've only been on sam.gov. I'm like, get to state and local. I'm like,
don't start with federal. Don't start with federal.
I know, but that's where everyone gets discouraged, right? They spend all this time, then they're like, oh, I have to get on GSA. Then they spend another $10,000 on a consultant. So we will save you from the mistakes. Like 25 years of knowledge packed into this course. So it's like the Matrix. We'll just plug it in the back of your head, data dump, instead of paving the path the hard way.
That's good.
Yeah.
Look, in the GovCast production team, can you note that new visual Matrix GSU? That's solid.
No, but it is. People pave like the path before you. So why not get that knowledge from others that have done it? Like, that is the easiest way to learn something. Don't talk to people that are struggling or struggle yourself. Just get the education and
totally listen. And I think Steve mentioned his team will actually show you the platform, show you the query. Like, you don't have to buy it unless you love it, but go to govsalesuniversity.com. Go look at some. There's no better use of $150 this year. I'm just telling you. And if you don't love it, just cancel. Who cares? $150. You spend that on one Friday night at a bad dinner. Good. I have two. Two other quick announcements. We'll let you go. One is the Gov Sales Hall of Fame. So listen, we're trying to here in the Q1. It has been a daunting. We all know it's been a very tough 2020. And so one of the things our team came up with, they're like, hey, how can we acknowledge what's happening? Again, I think a lot of times the Gov sales market kind of is treated like a stepchild and all the cycles and those kind of things. And there's not really a lot of things out there that promote the folks that work in the vertical. And so our team was like, hey, how can we just shine the light on what's happening? And so that's what this is. That's what this is. If you know somebody that sells to the government, there's 3 categories. We're going to give out, we're taking nominations to the end of March. There's 3 categories for the Gov Sales Hall of Fame, this inaugural class. So hopefully we do this every single year going forward. One is folks that sell to the government, right? That's a group. We'll get award will be for folks that sell to the government. Secondly, will be for service providers that help folks sell to the government. So there's a ton of great companies out there that help folks sell to the government. And then third is a lifetime achievement award, like folks that have been doing it for decades and had a ton of success. We want to acknowledge those folks as well. So 3 categories. If you know anybody that sells to the government, helps folks sell to the government, we want to acknowledge those folks. There's nothing in it. There's no fee. There's no bait and switch here. We're not going to market you. It's just a way to acknowledge those folks. Are going to get a huge trophy, huge press release. We're going to have a little ceremony. And then one day, once COVID's dead and gone, God willing, we'd love to have like a dinner and like do it legit. Really didn't want to wait another year or two. And so just thought it was a great idea. And so if you know anybody, totally for free, go nominate them. I think we have a couple hundred folks who have already been nominated. And so you have to the end of March. It'll be a great way to just acknowledge somebody you work with and take 10 minutes and go nominate them. And then my last announcement next week, if you're in sales and you are online, especially if you're on LinkedIn or if you follow sales leadership, Scott Leese, if you know that name, Scott Leese is one of the leaders in kind of sales, education. He's built a ton of companies. I think he has 60, 70,000 followers out on LinkedIn. Amazing. And all of his platforms. He has a surf and sales, sales seminars. That dude is into everything.
It's great.
He's going to be on the show next week. Super sharp guy. Great. So I encourage you to tune in next week. Great guy. It's a ton of information to share. So he'll be here next week. Can't do better than that. Love. One of the best parts about the show, listen, Gov sales is definitely a niche. Know that. Appreciate that. Right. So normally we'll have 40 or 50 folks live here, but every once in a while we'll cross over. The thing I love most about the GovCast, we've had some folks on from Sherry Leviton to Katie to Kevin Dorsey to Scott Lee's coming on next week. So I love that. Great. They have some great tips to share. He'll be a phenomenal. And so those are my last 2 announcements. Cool. Steve, anything else you got to share today?
I'm looking forward to the GovCast with Scott Leese. He's one of those guys that everybody thinks of salespeople as this stigma, and I think he flips it on its head. Like he just none of that slimy bait switch. He just this is who I am, and this is going to be the real. And he just connects with people, and I think that's attributed to his successes, just his bare, raw honesty, and his approach and his outlook. So super stoked to be having him on the GovCast and getting his knowledge.
Yeah, he has a great life story. If you don't know, he's super honest. He went through addiction, and so great life story. So tomorrow's show will be great. Next week's show will be great. It can't be better, Steve. He's not going to bring up as many 1800s references as you have, but all good. So we'll see you next week, Wednesday. No, do not miss it. Good luck at the end of the month.
Get to your goal.
Stay safe out there. Woo!
Adios.
We're out.